The Galactic Empire's cruel order. The Galactic Empire's command center buzzed with activity. The high-ranking officers and leaders gathered in a sleek, high-tech conference room. Above their heads, a large holographic display showed the sprawling expanse of their empire, each star system marked with glowing points of light. The room was silent except for the low hum of machinery and the occasional clink of metal as the leaders took their seats. Supreme Commander Vrax stood at the head of the table, his imposing figure casting a long shadow. His cold, calculating eyes surveyed the room. He had always been a man of decisive action, and today was no different. The council had convened to discuss a matter of great importance, one that would alter the fate of countless lives. Commander Vrax tapped a few controls on the console before him, and a holographic display shifted to show a group of small, blinking dots. Each dot represented a human settlement, and Vrax's finger traced a path along the edge of the map, highlighting a series of dots clustered closely together. "These are the locations of the human children we have been monitoring," Vrax said in a deep, authoritative voice. "They pose a significant threat to our long-term plans. Our intelligence reports indicate that their presence could destabilize our control over this sector." The other officers exchanged uneasy glances. High Commander Sirin, a sharp-eyed woman with a reputation for ruthlessness, leaned forward. "Are you suggesting we take action against them? They are just children, after all." Vrax's eyes narrowed. "These children are not as innocent as they seem. Our data shows that they have been involved in several resistance activities, including sabotage and intelligence gathering. They are a potential threat to our operations." A murmur of agreement spread through the room. The Empire had always been harsh and unyielding, but this was a new level of brutality. Vrax continued, "We must act swiftly and decisively. I propose a mass execution of these children. It will serve as a warning to any who would oppose us." A chilling silence followed his statement. The idea of executing so many innocent lives was a stark departure from the Empire's usual tactics, but there was no denying the gravity of the threat they posed. Sirin spoke up again, her voice steady. "What do you suggest we do next?" Vrax's gaze was unwavering. "We will commence the operation in 2 days. Ensure that all preparations are complete. I want every detail accounted for. We cannot afford any mistakes." The officers nodded in agreement. The room's atmosphere was heavy with the weight of the decision. The holographic display now showed detailed plans for the execution camps, with various stages of the operation meticulously outlined. Vrax's finger moved across the screen, highlighting areas of interest and marking key objectives. As the meeting concluded, the officers dispersed, each carrying out their assigned tasks. Vrax remained behind, staring at the display with a steely resolve. He was a man of action, and he believed that this brutal decision would solidify the Empire's control and eliminate any threats to their dominance. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of the Empire's territory, a small group of resistance fighters gathered in a hidden base. The resistance was made up of humans who had managed to escape the Empire's watchful eyes. They were led by a courageous leader named Alina, who had always been a beacon of hope for her people. Alina and her team were busy at work, preparing for their next mission. They had received fragmented intelligence reports about the Empire's plans, but the full details were still unclear. The base was filled with activity. People were huddled over communication devices, and the sound of clacking keyboards filled the air. One of Alina's most trusted operatives, a man named Jax, burst into the room with urgent news. "We've got a major problem," he said, his voice tense. "The Empire is planning something big. They're targeting human children. I don't have all the details yet, but it looks like they're planning a mass execution." The room fell silent. Alina's face went pale as she absorbed the gravity of the situation. The resistance had always fought against the Empire's oppression, but this was something different. This was an attack on the most vulnerable. "We need to confirm this information," Alina said firmly. "If the Empire is really planning to kill so many children, we have to do something. We can't let this happen." Jax nodded. I've already sent out a team to gather more intel. We should know more soon. Elena turned to her team, her eyes blazing with determination. We have to prepare for the worst. If this is true, we'll need to act quickly. Our priority is to protect those children and stop the Empire's plan. The Resistance members sprang into action, each one driven by a sense of urgency. They knew that the coming days would be critical. The Empire's decision had set the stage for a confrontation that would test their resolve and courage like never before. As the hours ticked away, the Empire's machinery continued to grind forward, relentlessly pursuing its cruel plan. The countdown to the massacre had begun, and the galaxy held its breath, unsure of what the future would bring. The horrific plan is revealed. The hidden resistance base was alive with tension. Elena and her team had been working around the clock since Jax's chilling report. The base, located in a remote part of the galaxy, was a makeshift hub of activity, with maps and data scattered everywhere. Resistance fighters hustled and bustled, trying to make sense of the chaos. Elena paced back and forth, her mind racing. She knew that the Empire's plan was more than just a threat. It was a calculated, cold-blooded execution of innocent lives. They needed to confirm every detail and act fast to save the children. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sharp knock on the door. "Elena, we have news," Jax said as he entered the room. His face was pale, and his eyes were wide with concern. "Our scouts have confirmed the Empire's plan. The massacre is set to begin in less than 24 hours. Elena's heart sank. "Tell me everything you know." Jax nodded and spread out a set of documents and holoprints on a nearby table. The Empire has established several execution camps in the regions where the children are located. They have been gathering them in these camps under the guise of education. The camps are heavily guarded, and the operation is running on a tight schedule. Elena's eyes scanned the documents. The camps were marked on the maps with red symbols, each representing a location where the Empire intended to carry out the executions. The level of detail was terrifying. The plans included the number of guards, the layout of each camp, and even the exact time when the massacres were supposed to begin. "How many children are we talking about?" Elena asked, her voice barely a whisper. Jax looked grim. "Around 800,000. This is the largest operation of its kind that the Empire has ever conducted. They want to make an example of these children to crush any remaining resistance." The room fell silent. The gravity of the situation was overwhelming. Elena felt a wave of determination wash over her. They had to stop this. If they failed, countless innocent lives would be lost. "We need to act immediately," Elena said, her voice steady despite the fear she felt. "We can't just wait for the Empire to carry out their plan. We need to get to these camps and rescue as many children as we can." Jax nodded. "We've started gathering supplies and organizing teams for a rescue mission, but the camps are well protected. It won't be easy." Elena knew that the resistance was outnumbered and outgunned. The Empire's technology and military might were formidable. But the thought of 800,000 innocent children being slaughtered was a powerful motivator. "We have to find a way to get past their defenses," Elena said. "Maybe we can create a diversion or find a way to disable their security systems." Jax agreed. "We have some tech experts working on hacking into the Empire's systems. If we can disrupt their communications and security, it might give us a chance to infiltrate the camps." Elena's mind raced as she considered their options. Every minute counted. The Empire's plan was already in motion, and they had little time to stop it. The Resistance's success would depend on their ability to act swiftly and decisively. "We'll divide into teams," Elena decided. "One team will focus on creating a diversion and disrupting the Empire's security. The other team will handle the rescue operations. We need to coordinate our efforts to maximize our chances of success." Jax and the other Resistance leaders quickly began organizing the teams. They prepared for the mission with a sense of urgency. The tension was palpable as they made final preparations, knowing that they were about to undertake a dangerous and crucial mission. As the hours ticked by, the Empire continued its preparations for the massacre. The execution camps were busy with activity as soldiers and officials made final arrangements. The camps were equipped with advanced security systems, and the guards were on high alert. Supreme Commander Vrax watched over the preparations with a sense of satisfaction. His plan was progressing smoothly, and the execution of the children was just hours away. He was confident that this brutal show of power would send a clear message to anyone who dared oppose the Empire. In the hidden resistance base, the teams were ready to launch their mission. The tension in the air was almost unbearable as they prepared to leave. Elena gathered her team for a final briefing. "Remember," Elena said, her voice strong and determined, "we're not just fighting for the lives of these children. We're fighting for the future of our people and for justice. We may be outnumbered and outgunned, but we have something the Empire doesn't: heart and determination." Her words resonated with the team, and they set out on their dangerous mission with resolve and courage. They knew that the odds were against them, but they were determined to stop the Empire's horrific plan and save as many lives as possible. As the resistance moved towards the Empire's execution camps, the galaxy held its breath. The clash between the Empire's cruelty and the Resistance's bravery was about to unfold. The fate of 800,000 children hung in the balance, and every action in the coming hours would determine whether they would live or die. The massacre starts. The early morning light barely touched the horizon as the Empire's execution camps buzzed with grim efficiency. Heavy machinery, armed guards, and grim-faced officials were everywhere, preparing for the day's horrific events. The camps, which had once been quiet, were now alive with the harsh sounds of military preparation. Every corner was fortified, every pathway monitored, and every movement scrutinized. In one of these camps, the first group of human children, terrified and confused, huddled together. They had been brought in under the guise of being transferred to safer locations, but they quickly realized the true nature of their fate. The air was thick with the smell of fear and the sound of muffled cries. The children, some as young as 5, clung to each other for comfort, their innocent eyes filled with dread. Supreme Commander Vrax stood atop a platform, looking down with a detached coldness. His gaze swept across the camp, observing the efficient, if brutal, preparations. He had always prided himself on his strategic brilliance, but today's operation was a grim reminder of the Empire's ruthlessness. As the final preparations were made, Vrax's comm device buzzed. A report flashed across his screen. All systems operational. Execution to commence in T-10 minutes. The word execution hung heavily in the air. Vrax nodded, a cold smile playing at the edges of his lips. He had no doubt that today would send a strong message throughout the galaxy. Meanwhile, the resistance teams were closing in on the camp's perimeter. Elena, leading the main rescue team, peered through binoculars at the camp's defenses. She could see the guards moving about, their movements synchronized with ruthless precision. Her heart pounded in her chest, knowing that every second brought them closer to the start of the massacre. Elena's team was in position. The diversion team, led by Jax, was in place several kilometers away, ready to execute their plan. They had set up explosive charges and electronic jamming devices to create chaos and disrupt the Empire's communications. "Remember the plan," Elena said to her team, her voice steady despite the nerves. "We need to get in, rescue as many children as we can, and get out before they realize what's happening." The first blast shook the air, a loud explosion that sent shockwaves through the camp. The diversion team had begun their attack. Smoke and debris filled the sky, and alarms blared, causing confusion among the Empire's forces. In the midst of the chaos, Elena and her team moved swiftly through the camp's outer defenses. They had trained for months for this moment, and now was the time to put their skills to the test. They encountered the first group of guards, quickly neutralizing them with precision strikes. The camp was a maze of tents and barricades, and every step forward was fraught with danger. Inside the camp, the children's cries grew louder. The Empire's guards, initially caught off guard by the explosion, were quickly regaining their composure and starting to herd the children into designated areas. The children's sobs and pleas for their parents pierced through the chaos, making Elena's heart ache. "Over here," one of Elena's team members shouted, pointing towards a large tent where a group of children was being gathered. Elena led the charge, cutting through the guards with swift, practiced movements. They reached the tent and found the children huddled inside, their faces wet with tears. "Don't be afraid," Elena said softly as she knelt before them. "We're here to help you. We need to get you out of here." The children looked up at her with wide, fearful eyes, but there was a glimmer of hope in their expressions. Elena and her team began guiding them out of the tent, moving quickly but carefully to avoid drawing attention. Every moment felt like an eternity as they made their way through the camp, evading patrols and skirting around the ongoing chaos. Outside the camp, the diversion team continued to wreak havoc. Jax's team had successfully disrupted the Empire's communications and security systems, causing even more confusion among the guards. The sound of more explosions and distant gunfire echoed through the air, blending with the cries and shouts from within the camp. Elena's team faced fierce resistance as they moved deeper into the camp. The Empire's forces were becoming more aggressive, their attempts to regain control evident in their frantic movements and increased firepower. Elena's team fought bravely, their mission clear despite the mounting danger. As the sun began to rise higher in the sky, the situation inside the camp grew more desperate. The Empire's soldiers were now on high alert, their movements frantic as they tried to regain control over the situation. The sound of gunfire was relentless, and the air was thick with smoke and the scent of burning debris. Elena's team reached the final group of children, just as the camp's command center issued orders to accelerate the execution process. The children, exhausted and terrified, were being rushed to their designated execution zones. Elena knew they had little time left. With a final, determined push, Elena and her team managed to evacuate the last group of children. They led them to a hidden transport shuttle that had been prepared for their escape. The shuttle, a sleek vessel capable of making a swift getaway, was their only hope of getting the children to safety. As the children climbed aboard and the shuttle's engines roared to life, Elena took one last look at the chaotic camp. The sky was dark with smoke, and the Empire's forces were still scrambling to regain control. The rescue mission had been a success, but the cost was high. Many lives had been lost, and the Empire's cruelty had been fully exposed. The shuttle ascended into the sky, carrying the children to safety. Elena watched as the camp grew smaller beneath them, her heart heavy with the weight of their victory and the sorrow of those left behind. The galaxy now knew the full extent of the Empire's brutality, and the resistance had shown that even in the darkest moments, hope and bravery could make a difference. As the shuttle sped away from the camp, Elena vowed to continue the fight against the Empire. The rescue was only the beginning. There was still much work to be done, and the battle for freedom and justice was far from over. The resistance strikes. The days following the massacre were tense and full of uncertainty. The Galactic Empire had swiftly covered up the disaster, but the galaxy was abuzz with whispers of the Resistance's daring raid. The news of the Empire's brutality had spread, and support for the Resistance grew stronger. Elena and her team had managed to get the children to safety, but they knew their fight was far from over. In their hidden base, the atmosphere was charged with a new sense of urgency. Elena and her leaders gathered in the war room, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of holoscreens displaying maps and intelligence reports. The Empire's response to the Resistance's actions had been swift and brutal, with increased patrols and a tightening grip on their territories. "We've made a significant impact," Elena said, her voice firm. "The massacre has exposed the Empire's true nature, and the galaxy is watching. But we need to capitalize on this momentum. We can't let the Empire think they've won." Jax, her trusted lieutenant, nodded in agreement. "The Empire is vulnerable right now. Their forces are stretched thin trying to maintain control and deal with the fallout. This is our chance to hit them hard. Alina's eyes were steely with determination. We need to strike at their heart, disrupt their command structure, and make them pay for their atrocities. We've been planning for a major assault, and now is the time to put it into action. The resistance had spent months preparing for this moment. They had developed detailed plans to attack key Empire installations, including supply depots, communication centers, and even a few high-profile military bases. The goal was to weaken the Empire's grip and demonstrate that the resistance was a force to be reckoned with. The first target was a crucial communication hub located on a heavily fortified space station. The Empire relied on this station for coordinating their military operations and relaying orders across the galaxy. If the resistance could disrupt this hub, it would create chaos and confusion among the Empire's forces. Alina and her team, along with a squad of elite fighters, boarded their stealth shuttle and made their way to the station. The shuttle, designed for covert operations, slipped through the Empire's defenses unnoticed. As they approached the station, Alina's heart raced with anticipation. The plan was simple: infiltrate the station, plant explosive charges in key areas, and then escape before the Empire could respond. The team moved with precision, their steps light and silent, as they navigated the station's corridors. They avoided security cameras and guards, using their training and the cover of darkness to their advantage. Alina and Jax led the way, their eyes scanning the area for any signs of danger. The station's interior was a maze of metal walls and glowing consoles, each one buzzing with activity. The resistance team split into smaller groups to cover more ground, planting charges in strategic locations that would cripple the station's operations. As they worked, the tension in the air was palpable. Every sound seemed amplified, every shadow a potential threat. Alina could hear the distant hum of machinery and the occasional murmur of voices from the guards. Their mission required absolute stealth and coordination. Once the charges were set, Alina gave the signal to retreat. The team moved quickly and quietly, making their way back to the shuttle. The countdown began as they boarded the shuttle and prepared for their escape. The space station was about to become a beacon of chaos. The shuttle soared away from the station just as the explosions erupted. The station's alarms blared, and bright flashes of light lit up the space. The resistance had succeeded in their mission, but there was no time to celebrate. They had to move quickly to avoid detection. Back at the hidden base, the resistance leaders monitored the aftermath of the attack. The communication hub was in ruins, and the Empire's response was immediate. Reports of confusion and disorder came in, confirming the success of the operation. Alina watched the live feed of the destruction, her face a mixture of satisfaction and concern. The Empire would retaliate, and the resistance needed to be ready for the inevitable counterattacks. The victory was significant, but it was just one step in a much larger struggle. The next phase of their plan involved targeting a supply depot that was critical to the Empire's military operations. Disrupting their supply lines would weaken their forces and provide the resistance with a strategic advantage. Alina and her team prepared for another dangerous mission, their spirits high despite the risks. As they planned their next strike, the resistance received word from their allies across the galaxy. The recent attacks had inspired uprisings and acts of defiance in several other regions. The Empire's grip was loosening, and the resistance's message of hope and courage was resonating with more and more people. Alina felt a renewed sense of purpose. The resistance was no longer just a group of rebels. They were a symbol of resistance against tyranny. The galaxy was rallying behind them, and the Empire's once unshakable dominance was now being challenged. The battle for freedom was far from over, but Alina and her team were determined to see it through. They knew that every strike against the Empire was a step towards a brighter future. The fight was fierce, the stakes were high, but their resolve was unbreakable. As the resistance prepared for their next assault, Alina looked out at the stars, her mind filled with hope and determination. The fight for justice and freedom was far from over, but with each victory, They were one step closer to defeating the Empire and bringing peace to the galaxy. The Galactic Warning. The galaxy was now ablaze with rumors and stories of the Resistance's bravery. The attacks on Empire installations had created waves of unrest and hope among the oppressed worlds. The Empire, once seen as an unassailable force, was now facing mounting challenges. News of the Resistance's successes spread like wildfire, reaching even the most distant corners of space. In their hidden base, Elena and her team were busy analyzing the results of their recent strikes. The latest attack on the supply depot had been a major success, significantly disrupting the Empire's logistical operations. The mood among the Resistance fighters was one of cautious optimism. They had proven their ability to strike at the heart of the Empire, but they knew the struggle was far from over. Elena gathered her senior officers for a briefing. The room was filled with maps, holoscreens, and scattered reports. The team had been working nonstop, strategizing their next moves and assessing the impact of their recent victories. "We've made a significant impact," Elena began, her voice steady. "Our strikes have caused chaos within the Empire, and the galaxy is taking notice. But we need to use this moment wisely. The Empire will retaliate, and we need to be prepared." Jax, her trusted lieutenant, nodded. "We've received messages from several systems that have been inspired by our actions. The Resistance is growing, and more planets are rising up against the Empire. We need to capitalize on this momentum and send a clear message to the galaxy." Elena agreed. "We need to make a statement, something that will resonate across the galaxy and show that the Resistance is a force to be reckoned with. We've been fighting in the shadows, but now it's time to make our presence known." The plan was ambitious. The Resistance decided to broadcast a galaxy-wide message, a warning to the Empire and a rallying cry to the oppressed. They would use the remnants of the Empire's communication networks, still vulnerable from their previous attacks, to transmit their message to every corner of space. The task was not without risks. The Empire had sophisticated technology designed to detect and suppress unauthorized transmissions. Elena's team had to devise a plan to bypass these defenses and ensure their message reached its intended audience. A small team of tech experts, led by a brilliant hacker named Rena, was tasked with the job. Rena and her team worked tirelessly, using every trick in the book to infiltrate the Empire's communication channels. They set up makeshift stations and coded their messages to avoid detection. As the preparations were underway, Elena addressed her team. "This message is not just about us. It's about every world suffering under the Empire's tyranny. We need to be clear and resolute. Our message must show that we are united, determined, and ready to fight for freedom." The day of the broadcast arrived. Elena and her team gathered in the operations room, their eyes fixed on the holoscreens that displayed the status of their transmission. The air was thick with anticipation. The Resistance's message was about to be sent out to the galaxy. Rena gave the signal. The transmission began, and the message started to spread through the Empire's communication networks. The Resistance's words echoed across space, reaching every system and every inhabited world. The message was clear and powerful. To the galaxy, "We are the Resistance, and we speak for those who have been silenced for too long. The Galactic Empire has shown its true face, revealing its cruelty and oppression. We have witnessed the massacre of innocent lives and the destruction of hope, but we refuse to be cowed by their tyranny. We stand as a beacon of defiance against the Empire's cruelty. We have struck their strongholds, disrupted their operations, and shown that they are not invincible. The galaxy is waking up to the truth. The Empire's reign of terror can be challenged, and it will be. To those who suffer under the Empire's rule, know that you are not alone. We are coming for you, and together, we will fight for our freedom. The time has come for us to unite and demand justice. The Empire's reign of darkness will end, and a new era of peace and freedom will rise. This is our warning to the Empire. We will not rest until every corner of the galaxy is free from your oppression." The resistance is growing stronger, and our resolve is unwavering. We will fight for every life, every planet, and every future. Join us in this fight, stand with us, and let's end the Empire's tyranny once and for all. For freedom and justice. The Galactic Resistance. As the message broadcasted across the galaxy, it created a ripple effect. Planets that had been silent began to stir with renewed vigor. Uprisings and protests broke out in several systems, and the Empire's once unshakable grip began to show signs of weakening. The Resistance's message had struck a chord with countless beings, igniting a wave of rebellion and hope. The Empire's response was swift and harsh. They scrambled to regain control, tightening their security and launching counterattacks. But the damage was done. The Resistance had succeeded in rallying support and spreading their message of defiance. In their hidden base, Alina and her team watched the galaxy's reaction with a mixture of pride and apprehension. The fight was far from over, but the Resistance had taken a crucial step in their struggle against the Empire. They had shown that their fight for freedom was not just a distant dream but a tangible reality. As the stars twinkled in the vast expanse of space, Alina felt a renewed sense of hope. The Resistance's message had been heard, and the galaxy was awakening. The path to freedom was fraught with challenges, but with each step, they were moving closer to a future free from the Empire's tyranny. The Empire's revenge. The broadcast from the Resistance had sent shockwaves across the galaxy. For the first time, many systems saw the Galactic Empire's true nature. The initial response was a surge of rebellion and hope. However, the Empire's reaction was swift and ruthless. They were determined to crush the Resistance and restore their control. Alina and her team were aware that the Empire would retaliate. The Resistance had prepared for possible repercussions, but the scale of the Empire's vengeance was staggering. Within days of the broadcast, the Empire launched a series of brutal counterattacks against planets and systems that had shown support for the Resistance. On one such planet, a bustling world known for its vibrant culture and thriving population, the Empire's fury was unleashed. The once bustling cities were now engulfed in flames as Imperial forces conducted a series of brutal raids. The people who had dared to voice their support for the Resistance faced severe punishment. The Empire's forces showed no mercy, targeting civilians and Resistance fighters alike. Alina and her team watched the reports with growing concern. The Empire's brutality was far worse than they had anticipated. The very people they had hoped to liberate were now suffering under an even harsher regime. The Resistance had to act quickly to mitigate the damage and offer support to the besieged worlds. Every day, the Empire's revenge grows worse, Jack said, his voice heavy with concern. We need to find a way to protect these worlds and help the people who are suffering. Alina nodded, her face set with determination. We must focus on providing aid and support where we can. We'll need to mobilize our allies and work with local resistance cells to coordinate relief efforts. We also need to ensure our own safety, as the Empire will likely target us as well. As the Empire intensified its attacks, the Resistance's hidden base became a hub of frantic activity. The team worked tirelessly to organize evacuations, provide supplies, and offer medical aid to those in need. They set up communication channels with various planets to coordinate their efforts and provide timely assistance. One of the key planets under attack was Eris 9, a world that had become a symbol of resistance against the Empire. The planet's people had rallied around the cause, providing crucial support and resources to the Resistance. In response, the Empire had launched a full-scale assault, targeting Eris 9's cities and infrastructure. Alina and Jax led a team to Eris 9, determined to help the planet's defenders and offer any support they could. The sight that greeted them was devastating. The once thriving cities were in ruins, and the air was thick with smoke and despair. The people of Eris 9 were struggling to survive amidst the chaos, their spirit unbroken despite the devastation. The resistance fighters on the ground were working tirelessly to defend what was left of their world. Alina and Jax joined them, coordinating efforts to repel the Empire's forces and provide aid to the survivors. They set up makeshift medical stations, distributed supplies, and assisted in organizing the defense. The battles on Eris 9 were fierce. The Empire's troops were well-equipped and relentless, but the defenders were driven by their desire to protect their home and their newfound hope. Elena witnessed acts of incredible bravery and sacrifice as the people of Eris 9 fought to hold their ground. During a particularly intense battle, Elena found herself in the midst of the chaos, coordinating the defense and providing support where it was needed most. The Empire's forces were pressing hard, and it seemed as though they might overwhelm the defenders. Just as the situation seemed dire, a group of Allied fighters arrived, their ships blazing through the smoke-filled skies. They were led by a well-known figure in the Resistance, a charismatic leader who had become a symbol of hope across the galaxy. The arrival of these reinforcements turned the tide of the battle. With renewed strength and determination, the combined forces of the Resistance and the defenders of Eris 9 pushed back the Empire's troops. The battle raged on, but the tide was shifting. The Empire's forces began to falter under the relentless resistance, and the people of Eris 9 fought with renewed hope. The struggle on Eris 9 was a brutal reminder of the high cost of the Resistance's fight for freedom. The planet was scared and battered, but its people remained resolute. Elena and her team worked tirelessly to help the survivors and begin the process of rebuilding. As the battle drew to a close, Elena stood among the ruins of Eris 9, reflecting on the harsh realities of their struggle. The Empire's revenge had been devastating, but it had also galvanized the galaxy. The Resistance's message of defiance had resonated deeply, and the fight for freedom was far from over. The Resistance knew that their struggle was not just against an oppressive regime, but for the very essence of hope and liberty. They had faced immense challenges, but each victory, each act of defiance, strengthened their resolve. Elena and her team returned to their hidden base, their spirits weary but unbroken. The Empire's revenge had tested their limits, but it had also shown them the strength and resilience of those they fought to protect. The path ahead was fraught with danger, but the Resistance was more determined than ever to see their fight through to the end. As the stars shone in the dark expanse of space, Elena felt a renewed sense of purpose. The fight against the Empire's tyranny was far from over, but the Resistance's resolve was unwavering. They would continue to stand against the darkness, united in their quest for freedom and justice. The final battle. The time had come for the final showdown. After months of fierce conflict and relentless fighting, the Resistance had built up their strength and gathered their forces for a decisive confrontation with the Galactic Empire. The galaxy was on edge. The outcome of this battle would shape its future. Elena stood on the command deck of the flagship, looking out at the vast fleet of Resistance ships assembled for the battle. The fleet was a patchwork of various designs, a testament to the unity of the diverse worlds that had joined the fight against the Empire. Each ship was prepared for the upcoming clash, its crew brimming with determination. The Empire's forces had been gathering as well, and intelligence reports indicated that they were preparing for a final all-out assault. The Empire had launched a massive buildup around the core worlds, the heart of their power. The Resistance's plan was to strike at the Empire's central command, hoping to deal a decisive blow to their leadership and disrupt their operations. "Everything is in place," Jax said, joining Elena on the command deck. "The fleet is ready, and our allies are in position. This is our chance to end this conflict and free the galaxy from the Empire's grip." Elena nodded, her face set with determination. "We've come a long way, but the hardest part is still ahead of us. We need to hit them hard and fast. Our goal is to take out their command center and force them to surrender." The flagship's crew worked with precision as they prepared for the battle. The plan was to launch a coordinated attack on the Empire's main command ship, located in the heart of their fleet. This ship controlled the Empire's operations and relayed orders to their forces. If the Resistance could disable or destroy it, they could cause chaos and confusion within the Empire's ranks. As the fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, Elena took a moment to reflect on the journey. The Resistance had faced countless obstacles, endured immense suffering, and fought tirelessly for their cause. The upcoming battle would be the culmination of their efforts, a final test of their resolve and courage. "Everyone ready?" Elena asked, her voice steady. The crew and fighters answered with a resounding "Yes, Commander." The fleet's engines roared to life as they prepared to make the jump to the heart of the Empire's territory. The Resistance fleet emerged from hyperspace in the midst of the Empire's armada. The scene was awe-inspiring and terrifying. The Empire's ships were massive and imposing, their weapons primed and ready for battle. The Resistance fleet, though smaller, was determined and battle-tested. The initial exchange of fire was fierce. The Empire's ships unleashed a torrent of laser fire and missiles, while the Resistance fleet fought back with equal intensity. Explosions lit up the space around them, and the vastness of the battlefield was filled with the sounds of combat. Elena's flagship maneuvered through the chaos, its shields holding strong against the barrage of enemy fire. The Resistance fighters engaged the Empire's forces, weaving through the debris and dodging the relentless attacks. The command center was in sight, a massive ship looming at the center of the Empire's formation. "Lock onto the command center," Elena ordered. "Prepare the main weapon. We need to take it out before it can respond." The crew worked quickly to align their targeting systems and charge their weaponry. The flagship's main weapon, a powerful energy cannon, was primed for a critical strike. The ship's hull vibrated with the power of the charged weapon as it aimed at the massive command center. Jax watched the status reports, his eyes fixed on the readouts. "We're almost ready, just a few more seconds." The battle raged on around them, but the Resistance fleet remained focused on their objective. The command center's defenses were formidable, but the Resistance had been preparing for this moment. They knew that taking out the command ship would be a game-changer. "Fire," Elena commanded. The energy cannon discharged a brilliant beam of light, cutting through the space towards the command center. The beam struck the command ship with incredible force, causing it to shudder and emit a blinding flash of light. The impact was devastating, and the command ship began to break apart, its systems failing. The destruction of the command center caused immediate chaos within the Empire's ranks. Without central command, their forces struggled to coordinate and respond. The Resistance fleet pressed their advantage, attacking with renewed vigor and taking control of key positions in the battle. The Empire's ships, once a well-oiled machine, now floundered without direction. The Resistance fighters exploited the disarray, targeting enemy vessels and neutralizing threats. The tide of the battle had turned in their favor. As the battle continued, Elena's flagship was at the forefront of the action. The crew worked tirelessly, their focus unwavering as they pushed forward. The sight of the Empire's forces retreating was a powerful symbol of their victory. In the midst of the chaos, Elena looked out at the battlefield, her heart pounding with a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. The final battle was a grueling test, but the Resistance had fought with courage and determination. The defeat of the Empire's command ship marked a turning point in the conflict. As the dust settled and the last of the Empire's forces were driven off, the Resistance fleet began to regroup. The victory was hard-earned, and the cost had been high, but the result was a resounding triumph for the cause of freedom. Elena and her team looked out at the stars, reflecting on the battle and the sacrifices that had been made. The fight against the Empire was over, but the journey towards a new era of peace and justice had just begun. The galaxy was forever changed, and the Resistance had played a crucial role in shaping its future. With the Empire's defeat, the galaxy began to breathe a sigh of relief. The final battle had been a pivotal moment, and the Resistance's victory was a testament to their bravery and resilience. As they looked towards the future, Elena and her team were filled with hope and determination, ready to face the challenges of rebuilding and forging a new path for the galaxy.